I myself have one interesting story I can mention. Renting an apartment in Bloomsbury, which I shared with one other person. 2 separate bathrooms, 2 separate bedrooms, and then a sort of similar space in terms of what we have here, like a sitting room, dining room, kind of through kitchen area, which was great. We had all the amenities that we wanted. We thought we were getting a good deal. And then, of course, while we were living in that apartment, the landlord just decided that they were going to renovate it. And they decided to just throw a dry lining wall through the middle of the amenity area. So basically what you have here, this reduced by a half to 2/3. And they installed a door in that, and that became a bedroom. We weren't consulted on it. We weren't given any kind of say or choice in the matter. And then obviously afterwards, when we said, well, obviously this isn't the same value for money that we were getting before. We don't have a space where we can entertain people, etc. Now there are 3 people living in here sharing 2 bathrooms, where before it was 2 sharing 2 separate bathrooms, 1 each. This is a downgrade. Is there going to be any change in the rent? No change in the rent. And then, of course, when it came to the end of that tenancy agreement, they said, oh, you've been a great tenant. You're going to stay with us, right? And I'm like, no, this is not good value. Why would I stay with you? You've ruined this space for me. As soon as I can get out, I'm going to get out. And I did. And I left and moved from there to another place in Fitzrovia, which was much better, suited for purpose. And that takes us to a point that I want to touch on, which is the nature of the rental agreements that you make with landlords. And the first one we had was for individual rooms. There was a lesson. I think we technically learned that lesson when we moved to the new flat. We rented the entire apartment ourselves and just shared it. So it was only the 2 of us. There was no way the landlord can come in and just throw walls in and add additional inhabitants to the house. But I mean, it was possibly legal, but I don't think it was ethical. And I don't think it was fair on us as tenants. And I felt in many ways like my rights were kind of trampled upon because I hadn't been consulted in any way, shape or form. I'd just been forced to accept this horrible situation. And it turns out that I got on fairly well with the new tenant, but I would never want to be in that situation again. But there are many people who are forced to because, as you say, they can only afford to rent by room, or they have to club together amongst themselves, and they have to come up with a large deposit to take the whole flat as a single rentable entity. I think that's another interesting example.
I mean, that definitely is a solution, but it has so many difficulties. I mean, finding a group of friends who have rents co-terminating at the same time to be able to move. I mean, it's easiest when you move out of university and you move in. That's sort of a natural timeline to align this. But after that, it just gets harder and harder. Somebody moves out, then do the other 2 people of the 3 pay for that shortfall in rent? They have to, in effective. So it is really challenging for a single young professional to find their way into anything but a room rental unless there's an enterprising lead tenant who takes on all the risk and then sublets and so on. I have friends that do that, and that becomes sort of a side hustle to manage, again, cost of living to some extent.